What's up, guys? It's Carly with FasciNATIVE English, where if you are finally ready to take your English to another level and to begin speaking English like a native English speaker, then you've come to the right place. So, let's get into it. What's up, guys? I have another idiom for you all today, and today's idiom is out of the blue. Again, that is out of the blue. And this just means something that happens unexpectedly. Okay? Something that happens unexpectedly, out of the blue. So naturally, you might hear this idiom in a situation where maybe there's two cars, they get into an accident. One of the drivers is explaining to the police officer what happened. That driver might say, "I'm sorry, officer, but this car just came at me out of the blue." Which means suddenly, unexpectedly, this car came and it hit my car. Or maybe my car hit that car, whichever, one person might have one story, the other person might have another story. So out of the blue. So today's example is, I have a couple examples for you all. One of them is kind of when I was a child and growing up. I had this one friend of the family, and his name was Paul.
Hi, I'm Paul.
And I used to call him Uncle Paul, even though he wasn't really my uncle, but I just called him Uncle Paul. I also had a grandfather who wasn't actually my grandfather, but I called him Grandpa. Weird like that, just a family friend. And he would always show up at our house out of the blue. This was the 90s and early 2000s. There were cell phones, for the most part. Even before that, there were beepers, if you guys remember. Yes, I'm aging myself here. I'm old enough to remember a beeper. But he would never call, he would never beep my mom's phone or my dad's phone. He would never call. Even though we had a house phone at our house, he wouldn't ever really call it. He would just show up.
How y'all doing?
Out of the blue, randomly, random times. And we would see him, 2 or 3 times a year, randomly showing up at our house. Most of the time, we just happened to be there because we didn't really do much growing up. I just went to school and my parents went to work, and I had some activities. I swam. I was a swimmer, so I had swim practice, and that's pretty much it. That's all we did. So he would show up out of the blue, and then my parents would just let him in, and he would talk for a couple hours, and maybe my parents would be like, "Hey, we're cooking dinner. Come on, eat." He would eat, and then he would go. And then maybe 6 or 7 months will pass, and the same thing would happen. He would show up out of the blue. We would be like, "Hey, catch up for a little bit," and then he would go. And this literally continued my whole life. So we moved to this house when I was like 3 years old, and my parents still live in that house to this day. And so I was a senior in high school, maybe the last time that Uncle Paul came over and just out of the blue popped up. I haven't really seen him as much since I heard that he moved away, so he can't really do that. It's not easy for him to do that anymore. I heard he moved to a different city. But yeah, growing up, it was just normal.
No, that's not normal.
For, him to just pop on over and out of the blue, show up, start talking. We talked for hours. That was that. Now that I'm an adult, I realize that is not normal. And I even tell all my friends, I'm like, you need to give me like a 2-week in advance notice before you show up to my house. You cannot show up out of the blue because I would not let you enter. I love you all, but I have 2 kids. So my house is crazy on an everyday basis. I try. It's my full-time job to try to keep my house in somewhat of an order. But I have 2 kids, and those kids are boys. So my house is just, it's a mess. It's clean. When people come over, they're like, "Oh, your house is pretty clean." And I'm like, I work so hard for this. But on a day-to-day basis, no. You're not coming over out of the blue. You need to give me a 2 weeks in advance notice. Like this weekend, we're having family come over, and they're my brother-in-laws, my husband's brothers. And I know that they're coming over. So I've cleared my schedule to just deep clean the house for like half of a day before they come over, because I know, I need to know so my house is nice and clean. But if you show up at my house out of the blue, you
shall not pass!
sorry, not coming in. We'll have a nice little chit chat outside in the driveway, but you're not entering my home because I'm not ready. Also, I might be in my pajamas. I don't know about you, but I just like to chill in my pajamas. As soon as I get home, most of the time, I mean, of course I dress up for you guys here on YouTube, but most of the time I'm just like, no makeup, pajamas, and I'm chilling. That's how I am at my house. But yeah, so my Uncle Paul, though, he would just come out of the blue randomly. And that was over the course of 18 years of my whole life, at least 15 of that, he would just show up randomly. And so that's my first example. My other example is, I always talk about my kids. I know I'm aware, bear with me, I'm sorry. But my oldest son, he asks the most random questions all the time, out of the blue. And I didn't plan on giving this example, but this literally happened yesterday. So I was like, you know, it'll be a funny example for you all to share, because this was completely out of the blue. All right, we are in the car and we're driving to go to the gym. And, you know, my husband and I, we go to the gym, I don't know, 5 or 6 times a week. We are very into exercise. It might not look like that because we're also very into food, all right? But we're very into exercising and being healthy, being strong, weightlifting, stuff like that. So we're on the way to the gym. The kids are in the back seat. When they get to the gym, there's like a little kids area that they go and they play at. And we're just chilling. Like, my husband's driving. It was a storm, so it had just finished raining. The music wasn't even on the radio. We're just looking out the window. And my son in the back seat says, "Mommy?" I'm like, "Yes, baby, what's wrong? What's up?" He's like, "If a cat lived underwater, would there still be catfish, or would catfish be called another name?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I don't know." And he's like, "It's interesting." And I'm like, "Yep, sure is." I cannot make these things up, you guys. Out of the blue, so random. He was just like, "Yeah, I don't think they will be called catfish anymore, because if a cat lived underwater, it would be called a catfish. So an actual catfish wouldn't be a catfish." And I was like, yeah. You know, sometimes when you have like kids growing up, they're random. And if you're a parent and you're watching this, you know, probably this happens to you too. The most random questions out of the blue, when you least expect it, they just hit you with that boom question. And you're like, how do you even think of this? But now you're thinking about it and you're like, I don't know. You know, you're like, wait a minute, you got me. That's a good question, you know. But you're just like, what goes on in your little mind? I'm really wondering. I really kind of wonder what goes on in there. But no, so that's like a little funny story for out of the blue for you all today. I hope you have a better understanding of this idiom. If you do, please like this video, comment, and subscribe. And I hope to see you all in the next video.